Update: my 30 female, sister 26 female wants to move into my mother's house with her fiancé, 31 male, but doesn't want me there. My mother and aunt are telling me to let them move in and then wait until they move out before visiting again. What should I do? Original post. Background: I'm 30 female in grad school and visit my family during school breaks. My sister 26 female has been living with her fiancé 31 male in an apartment close to my mother's house. Over the last few years, they have been saving up for a down payment to move to a different state. In early 2024, my sister and I got into an argument because she and her fiancé got engaged while abroad when I was pet sitting for them. I found out through my friends who saw it on my sister's social media. When my sister and her fiancé dropped off gifts from their travels, my sister said that she was surprised I got them an engagement gift because she had heard that I was upset about the engagement. Presumably through our mother. I said I was upset, but that we didn't need to talk about it. I tried to shut down the conversation twice, but her fiancé insisted we talk about it because he said he was excited to bring me gifts. But I wasn't excited about their engagement and that the engagement was supposed to be about them. But I was making it about my feelings. I said that if they wanted to talk about it, then I wasn't upset about the engagement as much as I was about my relationship with my sister. Last year, my sister had said that she didn't feel comfortable talking to me anymore because I came off as judgmental and condescending. I told her that I would work on it. She also brought up that when our father left when we were kids, I took it out on her and that she wanted more boundaries with me. I apologized, and then we didn't talk much after that. So when we spoke early this year, I asked what she meant by boundaries. She said that she made her boundaries clear when we last spoke, and that by asking about her boundaries, I was disrespecting them. I told her I thought there might be miscommunication because I wasn't sure what she was referring to, but she said there wasn't any. I asked her to specify what she was referring to, and she said that I knew what she was referring to because I was there. Eventually, she said I was abusive and that when our father left, I told her multiple times that he didn't love her and that I had deliberately broken her toys when we were little. I told her I wasn't trying to gaslight her, but I really didn't remember. I asked if she had more recent examples, and she said that when I moved home from after undergrad, I once asked her to clear her desk off in the evening. But when she was taking too long, I knocked everything off her desk and screamed at her and kicked her out of the house. She said I kicked her out of the house multiple times and forced her to sleep on the streets, and that I destroyed her bedroom before. Around this time, her fiancé said that he expected a considerate person to immediately apologize instead of asking questions, at which point I did apologize. I asked my sister if she still viewed me in the same way as she was describing. Before she responded, they asked if I felt characterized unfairly. I said that it didn't matter whether I felt it was unfair because the focus of the conversation right now was on my sister's feelings and not on me. I asked her if she wanted to spend time with me anymore or if she felt obligated to because we still had dinners together when I visited. She said that she didn't have to answer that question. The next day, my mother said that my sister called saying that her fiancé suggested they move into my mother's house. My mother said no because I still came over for breaks. My sister called her back asking for $42,500 as an engagement gift for the down payment of a house. My mother agreed on the condition that she didn't move back in with her. After this, I returned to grad school, which is several states away. My sister asked me several times through my mother if I would pet sit for her while she was traveling. I said no. Recently, she quit her job at her fiancé's workplace and has been asking to move back in. My mother asked if my sister still expected the $42,500 after moving back in. My sister said that because her mother already promised her the money, she couldn't take it back. I told my mother that I didn't care if my sister lived there as long as I could still visit. My mother called me today to tell me that when she told my sister that I wanted to still visit for breaks, my sister said that if I returned, I was wasting her a year on rent because she didn't want me there. My sister also told my mother to tell me to stay at an Airbnb when I visited home, but I can't afford to pay rent and an Airbnb on my current stipend. At this point, my mother and aunt told me to let them live there and wait 1 to 2 years before visiting home. I feel like I'm going crazy and I'm really struggling to understand where my sister is coming from. My mother also wants my sister to move home because she's worried about her, which I understand. But I feel stressed about this situation and have no idea what I should do or even can do. I'm looking for input on whether there is something logical in my sister's behavior that I'm missing and whether I should agree to not visit home for a year or two while she lives at our mother's house. OP's Edit 1. Thank you everyone for your comments and thoughts. I need to head to bed because I have an early morning, but I'll try to respond more when I have time. I feel a lot less crazy after reading through these, so thank you. A lot of people brought up that I need to stand up for myself more, which is something a lot of my friends have said too. My mother said that she was going to talk to my sister and then get back to me, so I'll hear her out first and see where to go from there. Thank you again for your time and energy in responding. I really appreciate it. Edit 2. I didn't expect this to get so many comments. I can't respond individually to everyone right now, but I want to clarify and answer some questions people brought up. Around the time my sister and her fiancé started dating, we got into an argument because I said it was inappropriate for him to be her doctor, and that he asked her out during an appointment. Before then, my sister and I used to talk several times a week, but she stopped calling and my calls and texts weren't going through. I suspected she blocked me, but she kept saying that she had phone issues. For the last few years, I have only been able to talk directly with my sister in person. All calls and texts went through someone else. Last year, she finally admitted to blocking me and said that she wanted more boundaries, but didn't elaborate more than that. In the same conversation, she said that when her father left, I was 8 and she was 4, I took it out on her. She did not give examples. I apologized and she thanked me for being receptive. The rest and majority of this conversation was about how I came off as judgmental and condescending. When I asked for examples, she couldn't remember any, but I said I would try to be more mindful of my words and tone. Fast forward to this year, my sister asked me, through her fiancé, to fly home from school to pet sit for 3 weeks. I'm done with classes and I'm working full-time on my thesis, and my work said that I could temporarily work remote, so I was able to go. My sister and her fiancé got engaged while abroad. My sister has a significant following on TikTok to the point of getting sponsorships, so when she posted about the engagement, my friend saw it first and told me. She wasn't planning to tell any of her family members. I wasn't upset that they got engaged. I was upset that they didn't tell me. I had been feeling distant from my sister for several years now, but wanted to give her space. I was upset that in this time she still asked me for money or to pet sit, and I always said yes, but it seemed like she wanted things from me rather than a relationship. When my sister and her fiancé dropped off gifts from their travels, my mother asked me not to argue with her. She said that she asked the same of my sister. This is why I tried to shut down the conversation twice when they brought up that I was upset about the engagement. But her fiancé kept insisting we talk about it, so I said that it wasn't that I was upset about the engagement itself. I was upset about my relationship with my sister. This is when I asked her about boundaries. I wanted to know what she wanted from our relationship and what our interactions would look like, given we were no longer close, but she was still asking for favors. She said that she made her boundaries clear last year. I disagreed and said that I think there was miscommunication because I still wasn't sure what her boundaries were. This was when she said that I was abusive and gave examples. I was mostly confused when she mentioned all these things, which is why I was asking questions. I have never kicked my sister out of the house or destroyed her room, and my mother agrees with me. There were things in what she was saying that didn't make sense to me, like why would I ask her to clear her own desk in her room in the middle of the night? You get upset that she was taking too long and kick her out of the house, or how she was able to sleep on the streets without anyone noticing, including her family pets, who would have made a lot more noise. This was when her fiancé said he expected a considerate person to apologize instead of asking questions. I apologized then, which I now regret because I think by apologizing, I implied that I did the things that she described. When her fiancé asked me if I felt characterized unfairly, I did feel that it was unfair, but I responded in the way that I did because if I said yes, I think they would have accused me of gaslighting them. My sister had already brought up earlier in the conversation that I was blocking out memories, so I felt like if I gave a yes or a no answer, I would still be accused of being abusive. I thought by shifting the conversation back to my sister's feelings, we could focus on what she wanted from our relationship. But the conversation didn't turn out that way. I didn't write this in the original post, but after they left, I asked her fiancé if I could send a letter to my sister through him because she had blocked me and didn't want direct contact. In the text, I thanked them for coming over and having this conversation because it was difficult for everyone involved. I said that whenever I tried to explain my perspective, it unintentionally came off as an invalidation of hers, which is not my intent. I said that I had spoken to her mother, who agrees with me that what she is describing from adulthood never happened. I apologized again for my behavior in elementary school when I told her our father didn't love her and when I'd broken her toys. Her fiancé texted back that they didn't want further contact from me. The following day, my mother said that my sister had asked for cash as an engagement gift. My sister had originally asked for $100,000, but my mother talked her down to $42,500. Since then, I have not tried to reach out to my sister at all. She has still asked me multiple times through our mother to fly back to pet sit. I have said no every time. This leads to the present day situation. I'm supposed to fly home soon, and the original agreement was that my sister would take the $42,500 and not move into my mother's house with her fiancé. But she said that since she quit her job, she needed to save up money faster and wants to move in the next 2 weeks. She quit because she said it was too stressful. She had been working at her fiancé's place for about a month. Before that, she was only doing social media sponsorships and getting $1,300 a month from my mother as financial support. My sister is now trying to move in and take the $42,500, but she says I'm not allowed to be there. I know all this sounds insane, but my sister wasn't like this at all until recently. Everything she's saying and doing right now feels very uncharacteristic of her. We were close up until a few years ago, and everything she is now bringing up feels like it's coming out of nowhere. I'm wondering if it's her fiancé. I know a lot of people have been saying to go no contact, but my mother and I are worried about her because she's lost all of her friends, which is why she always asked me to fly in to pet sit, which I would stop doing too. And to everyone asking about my sister and her fiancé's finances, I did ask about that. My mother said that my sister said she doesn't know how much money that he has saved up, but they had been saving up for the last few years. I don't know how much money he makes, but based on his job, the bare minimum should be $100,000 a year. However, I know he has student loans, so I don't know how much he's paying back. A few people asked whether my mother financially supported me in the past. She has, yes, when I was an undergrad. My tuition and dorm was mostly covered with scholarships, but she covered whatever was left using a Parent Plus loan, which I agreed to pay back after grad school. She hasn't financially supported me since I was 20. I moved back home after undergrad for 1 year to work full-time and save money. After that, I moved out of state and have been financially independent ever since. Now for the update. Update, everyone. Thank you who took the time and energy to read my post and respond. It was really helpful to hear different viewpoints, so I'm very grateful. The draft for my original post was much longer than what I published, but I was worried that people wouldn't read it if it was too long, which is why a lot of details got glossed over. This is going to be as complete a timeline as I can remember, along with the update of what had happened. Me, 30 female, sister 26 female, had a good relationship growing up and into adulthood. We talked several times a week and regularly played stream games together. When I moved out of state for undergrad and grad school, she occasionally flew out to visit me. A few years ago, she met her current fiancé during a doctor's appointment. She had recently broken up with her previous boyfriend and he asked her out. She moved in with him within a week of their meeting. I told her over the phone that I was concerned about her moving in so quickly and that he asked her out during a professional health visit. She said that I never approved of any of her boyfriends, which is true because they were abusive and/or dealing drugs. And she stopped reaching out. I thought she needed time to process, so I left it at that. A lot of people raised concerns about him being her doctor, which I agree with. She justified their relationship by saying that she was going to get a new doctor, which she did, and that it didn't matter how they met, only that they had met. I did bring up my concerns with other family members, but my sister has had a string of violent boyfriends in the past, and her most recent boyfriend was dealing drugs, so everyone was mostly relieved that she was dating a doctor. I disagreed with that they were what they were saying, but I had asked multiple people to stay out of the relationship because it didn't involve me. I met my sister's fiancé during a family gathering. He asked one of her relatives, who was in middle school, if he could come over to his house to play games together. I didn't hear this conversation, and my parents were not there. After my sister and her fiancé left, my relative asked me to tell my sister that he didn't want her fiancé to come over. I texted this to my sister, and she said that she would let him know, but that her fiancé was trying to be friendly. I said that was fine, but to still tell him not to come over to her relative's house because he felt uncomfortable. She said okay, and that was the last time I had any direct contact with my sister via phone or text. Over the next few years, I continued grad school in another state. My sister said that her phone was broken, which was why she wasn't getting my calls or texts. I kept suggesting that she get a new phone, and she said she was getting around to it. During this time, she would still ask me, through other people, for money and to pet sit for her, which I always agreed to when I could, but we didn't talk much outside of this. Last year, I visited home during a school break. I can't remember my exact phrasing, but I asked my sister what she wanted our relationship to look like. She admitted that she blocked my number years ago because she felt that I was judgmental and condescending, and that she thinks I've changed because I went to grad school. I asked her for examples, but she only brought up conversation topics, e.g. when we were talking about a book or her pets. She couldn't remember specific examples, so I just said I would be more mindful of my words and tone moving forward. This was the majority of our conversation. In that same conversation, she said that when our father left, I was 8 and she was 4. I took it out on her and that she wanted more boundaries with me. She didn't go into specific events or elaborate on the boundaries. I did not tell her that I didn't remember what she was talking about. I apologized to her and she thanked me for being receptive. Fast forward to early this year. Earlier this year, my sister asked me through her fiancé if I could fly home to pet sit for 2 weeks while they traveled. I was done with my courses and had been doing full-time on my thesis, and my work was able to accommodate, so I agreed. While they were abroad, I learned through my friends that she got engaged because she posted it on TikTok. My sister has a significant following to the point of getting sponsorships, which is why it got back to my friends. I was upset that my sister didn't tell me about the engagement. I wasn't upset that they got engaged. It felt like my sister wanted the benefits of a relationship with me without the actual relationship, and the engagement was like a catalyst for those feelings. For the last few years, I had been paying for several of her streaming services, which I didn't use. While they were still abroad, I canceled their services and didn't tell them in advance. I know this was petty. A few days after they got back, they both came to drop off gifts and pick up their pets. My mother asked both me and my sister in advance to not argue with each other. My mother knew that I was upset that they didn't tell me about the engagement and that my sister was upset about the cancellations. When they came over, my sister said that she was surprised I got them an engagement gift because she thought I was upset about the engagement. I said I was, but that we didn't have to talk about it. Her fiancé said that he felt like we had to talk about it because he was excited to bring me gifts, but I wasn't excited about the engagement. I tried to shut down this part of the conversation twice, but he insisted. He said that because I technically had access to TikTok, I technically had access to all the same information as everyone else, and I didn't have a right to be upset. He also said that they were allowed to tell or not tell whoever they wanted. I kind of agree with that. and they weren't planning to tell my family members to maintain privacy. I didn't say this because I didn't want to escalate the situation, but it didn't make any sense to me that they expected me to be excited about an engagement that they didn't tell me about and weren't planning to tell me about. It also didn't make any sense that they wanted to maintain privacy, yet posted it on TikTok to a large following. I said that if they really wanted to talk about this, then it wasn't that I was upset about the engagement as much as I was about my relationship with my sister. My sister and I used to be close and had been distant for years, so her not telling me about the engagement felt more like a catalyst for the distance I was feeling. I brought up the conversation that we had last year and I asked her what boundaries in our relationship should look like. I asked this question because she was still asking me for favors, but it didn't seem like she wanted an actual relationship with me, so I wanted to clarify our expectations for each other. She said that she made her boundaries clear last year and that by asking her about her boundaries, I was disrespecting them. I said that there might be miscommunication because I still wasn't sure what her boundaries were. Last year, she had only said that she wanted more space, but didn't elaborate. Around this time, she said that I was abusive. She reiterated that when her father left, I was 8 and she was 4, I took it out on her. This time, she gave examples. She said that I told her he didn't love her and that I had deliberately broken her toys. Mostly I was confused. I said that I believed what she was saying and that I still didn't remember these events. She said that I blocked out the memories. I asked her if there were more recent examples. I didn't say this out loud, but I asked her this because I felt that it was unfair that she was judging me as an adult based on my behavior in elementary school. I understand that this question might come off as me not believing her, but I was trying to get an idea of how she viewed our present-day relationship and myself. She said that when I moved back home for a year after undergrad, which was 10 plus years ago, I kicked her out of the house and forced her to sleep in the streets. She also said that I once destroyed her bedroom and that I had once asked her to clear her desk, but she was taking too long, so I screamed at her and forced her outside in the middle of the night. I have never done any of these things. At the time, my sister, mother, and I were also housing another family member. I spoke with my mother about this conversation, and I recently asked the other family member, and no one remembers any of these events my sister described. At this time, her fiancé said that he expected a considerate person to immediately apologize instead of asking all these questions. I did apologize then, which I now regret. I spoke to my therapist about this afterwards, and she agreed that by apologizing, I implied that I did the things that my sister accused me of. I asked my sister if she still viewed me as the same person she was describing. She didn't have the time to answer because her fiancé asked me if I felt her characterization of me was unfair. I did think it was unfair, but I thought that if I said yes, I would be accused of gaslighting, or my sister would just tell me again that I blocked out the memories. So when I said that, it didn't matter. I thought their characterization of me was unfair. I was trying to validate my sister's feelings, validate her feelings, not the events she described, and I wanted to shift the conversation back to what she wanted from our relationship. This is why I next asked her if she wanted to spend more time with me anymore or if she felt obligated to. I wanted to know if she wanted an actual relationship with me. When I came back for school breaks, we still had dinners together, but we rarely talked because there were other family members in between us. She said that she didn't have to answer this question, and I agreed with her that she didn't have to answer. After they left, I texted her fiancé to ask if I could send a letter to my sister through him, and he agreed. I thanked them for coming and having a difficult conversation. I said that whenever I tried to explain my perspective, it unintentionally came off as an invalidation of hers, which isn't my intent. I said that I spoke to our mother, who also doesn't know about the event she described, but that I wanted to talk more to clarify whatever was going on. I apologized again for breaking her toys and telling her our father didn't love her. Her fiancé texted back that they didn't want further contact from me and that they had hoped I would get help. I have not tried to contact either of them since. The next day, my mother said that my sister asked to move into her house. My sister said that it was her fiancé's idea. For the last few years, my sister and her fiancé have been living in an apartment and saving money to buy a house several states away. One of my sister's conditions was that if she moved in with her fiance, I wasn't allowed to stay at my mother's house anymore. My mother said no, and my sister called back asking for $100,000 as an engagement gift for the down payment of a house. My mother talked her down to $42,500 on the condition that she'd not move back in with her. I told my mother that I did disagree with her decision to give my sister so much money, but at the end of the day, it was her money and not mine. After that, I flew back to my own apartment across the country and continued grad school. I thought things would cool off with my sister, but over the next 4 to 5 months, she kept reaching out to me through my mother to pet sit for her. I have said no multiple times. Recently, she quit her job at her fiance's workplace. She worked there for a few weeks in addition to her social media sponsorships, but said that it was too stressful. My sister asked my mother if she could increase her monthly allowance from $1,300 to $1,600 because she was no longer working. She also said that because she no longer had a job, she needed to move in with my mother to save more money. The original condition for the $42,500 was for my sister not to move in, so my mother asked her if she still expected the money. My sister said that because my mother already promised the money, she couldn't take it back. A lot of people have asked about my fiance's financial situation. Based on his job, he should be making at least $100,000 a year, but it's most likely more. I know that he has student loans to pay off, but I don't know how much or what his payments are like. They have been saving up for the down payment for several years, so I did ask my mother how much they had saved. My mother said that my sister doesn't know. I asked how this was possible, and my mother said that it doesn't seem like they discuss finances. This turned into a whole different conversation with my mother about their relationship, but I digress. Update. I'm sorry in advance that this update is confusing, but this only happened earlier today, and I learned a lot of new info, which is chronologically all over the place. My mother spoke to my sister over the phone. My mother suggested a few compromises: that my sister and her fiance stay at an Airbnb, or that they pay for an Airbnb, or that my sister and her fiance could take the upstairs and I could take the basement, or vice versa. My sister said no to all of these things and keeps asserting that she doesn't want me there while she lives there. Things get a bit confusing here. My mother said that during her conversation, my sister said the following. She said that when we were younger, my mother always told us not to fight over toys, but that my sister always had to give the toys to me. She said that because she didn't get what she wanted as a kid, it's only fair for her to get what she wants as an adult. That's so ridiculous. My sister accused me of telling her relative, who was in middle school at the time, that her fiance was a bad person, which is why our relative didn't want her fiance over at his house. This is completely false, and our relative can attest to this, but I don't want to drag him into this. My sister also said that the monthly allowance my mother gave her was going almost entirely to the down payment, so she and her fiance would need to cut down on the food, and if our mother didn't let her move back in, it was her fault that they had to go hungry. She said that if I were to move back in, I would start fights with both of them, and her fiance wouldn't be happy with me being there anyway. She also said she was worried that I would ruin her fiance's reputation as a doctor. My mother and I spoke on the phone for over an hour. I suggested family therapy. My mother said that my sister wouldn't be open to it. I tried to counter everything with what my sister said. My mother agreed with me, but said she still felt bad for her. I kept saying that if I didn't care if my sister and her fiance moved in, but I cared whether or not I would be allowed over for breaks. We went in circles almost the entire time. My mother kept asking me what I wanted her to do. I kept repeating myself. She kept saying that she felt really bad for my sister because my sister keeps calling her in tears. So my mother ended up saying that I should be fine with not visiting for the time that my sister is there and to just let her move in. She kept insisting, so I said that if I wasn't allowed back for that time, then I wasn't so sure that I would be coming back. She told me not to be like that, and I ended up hanging up on her. She has tried to call him back at least a dozen times, and I haven't picked up, but I probably will at some point. My thoughts. First off, thank you for everyone who read my post and took the time and energy to comment. A lot of people have said that this whole situation seems ridiculous and doesn't make any sense, and it's true. It doesn't make any sense. I've spoken to a lot of people IRL about this, and no one understands what is going on. Most people I have talked to agree that I only know part of the story. A few people brought up my sister's fiance as a potential issue. That's what I think. After reading through everyone's comments and organizing my thoughts, I think this might be true. I could include every single detail event here, but thinking back, he has told my sister about random conversations that we've had that were a point of conflict, even though I didn't think they were. For example, I once saw him holding something in his hand. So I asked him what it was. He said it was a capo for a guitar. This was the entire conversation. Later on, my sister came up to me to say that I needed to be more considerate of other people's feelings. I said I didn't know what she was talking about. She said that by asking him about the guitar earlier, I was being unsupportive. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but her fiance said that my question came off as unsupportive of his interests. See, I think he is the problem. There were other weird instances. For example, my sister has sometimes described her feelings like, "My fiance has noticed that I seem uncomfortable around you, and I think that he's right. Looking back, there are a lot of little things that didn't seem like a big deal, but when taken together, I'm not sure anymore." A lot of people have asked why she keeps asking me to pet sit even though she says I'm abusive. I don't know, because she doesn't have anybody to ask, I guess. I have asked this question a lot to people, and they also don't know. My sister has told me before that if anything happened to her pet, she knew she could rely on me to handle the situation, which is really weird. But even after our argument about the engagement, she has still asked me to multiple times to pet sit, including for this month. And after our argument early this year, they refused to pay for my return flight after I was done pet sitting. So I ended up covering it myself. I don't know if her behavior in this and everything else is related to her fiance. I feel like I don't have the whole story and I'm not sure what's going on. A few people IRL suggested to me that she didn't read the letter I sent through her fiance. I had assumed that she did because he responded with "we" statements. But given everything people have said, I'm not so sure anymore. Again, I think he's the problem. So I feel torn. If my sister's fiance is abusive and is pulling the strings, then I would agree to have my sister move into my mother's house even though I couldn't visit. My mother works very long hours and is only home to sleep and shower. But at the very least, she might be able to piece more of this together and support my sister. But if my sister is really saying all these things and believing all these things, I really need a break from all of this because this has been really exhausting. Thank you again to everyone who read my post and offered their perspective. All of this feels insane to me and I sometimes feel like I'm going crazy, so it's been reassuring to hear people say that the same thing. I appreciate everyone who reached out to me to ask if I was okay, and I am. At the end of the day, I have my own life and job far away from my sister. I've been going to therapy for almost half my life now, and I have a really good support system with my friends, so I'm very grateful. I don't think I'll post again after this, regardless of what happens. Thank you again for taking the time to respond and to read, and I really appreciate it. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.